Okay, good morning. Again, there's a handout with slides. If I missed you, I have extra up here. Also, the PDF file is available on Manava if you need to make another copy or something. Okay. So last week, I introduced the course, and then we began the topic of phonetics by recognizing that we can identify individual speech sounds during speech. Even though speech groups sounds together, I say the word sounds. I don't say s, ow, z, but we can identify the different pronunciations that combine together in speech, and we can group them together into classes, into segment classes. The word class means category. And segment classes are different from each other in terms of how much sound the pronunciation creates. Some speech sounds are very quiet. Like the letter T, does not create a lot of sound. But the vowel a creates a lot of sound for a speech sound. So segments that belong to the same class, the same segment class, have a similar amount of sound. And we're going to go step by step through each of 5 segment classes. I introduced all 5 of them last week, but we're going to go through them in a little more detail, starting today with the segment class of, vowels. And then next week, we'll look at glides, liquids, and the following week, nasals and obstruents. And once we've identified the different segment classes, we'll begin to see how segments group together in speech. And different languages have different rules for combining segments into words. So we'll look at the English rules, the Japanese rules, and then a few other languages to see how they are similar and how they are different. Okay. So, as I said, we'll begin by looking at segment classes. And the difference in segment classes is based on a property we call sonority. So this is the first kind of technical definition you need to know. Sonority can be used outside of phonetics, outside of linguistics. Poetry, for example, talks about sonority when a poem has a certain kind of sound to it. But in phonetics, we use the word sonority to mean the relative loudness of a speech sound. Relative means in relation to other sounds. Of course, I can speak quietly and I can speak loudly. I can change the loudness of my speech, but the relative amount of sound for each type of segment will have a certain relationship. That's why we call it a relative loudness of speech sounds. And last week, so I should point out that the source of this sonority is a combination of the voice and the airflow path speech takes. So when I produce speech, air passes through my mouth, but by changing the shape of the space in my mouth, it increases or decreases the airflow path through the mouth. An airflow path that is wide will have a lot of sonority. An airflow path that is very narrow will have little sonority. And if we completely stop the airflow, then we will eliminate or stop the sonority. So we'll come back to this image again several times, but basically, I hope it's clear. So here, this is a nose, and this is the upper lip. Here's the chin and the lower lip. upper teeth, lower teeth. Here's the tongue. Right? And we're going to identify the different parts of the mouth involved in speech sounds. But air and voice can travel through the mouth or travel through the nose when creating different speech sounds. So when I say airflow, this is what I mean. The path of airflow through the mouth or through the nose. And if I change the position of the tongue and raise the tongue, it's going to make a narrower airflow path. If I lower the tongue, it's going to make a wider airflow path. So changing the shape inside the mouth will change the amount of sonority that is created during speech. And so last week I identified these 5 classes. There are actually 6 types here. So vowels, which we'll start today, is the first segment class. They are produced with the greatest amount of sonority. And then glides, liquids, nasals, fricatives, and stops we'll come to one by one. But basically we measure sonority from the bottom to the top. And so sounds that are produced by stopping the airflow, like pop, right? T, k, b. These sounds have the lowest degree of sonority because they have no airflow. Right? Now, many of them do not involve the voice. Right? The sound p, whether p or t, k. There's no voice and no airflow. So basically there's no sonority. Now, I've included a little disc here, so it looks like there's a little bit, but in fact, technically there's no sonority, but it's the lowest level. Fricatives, the difference between stops and fricatives we'll come back to in more detail later, but basically fricatives don't stop the airflow completely. We call them, together we call these 2 segment types one segment class, the obstruents. You can obstruct the airflow completely or partially. So there's a little more sound because there's a little more because of the airflow. Okay? So, and then nasals are sounds pronounced with the voice traveling through the nose only. Right? Sounds like and and. And we'll study those in more detail as well later. Good morning. And then the segments we call liquids are those that are produced by forcing the airflow, forcing the voice through the mouth, but in a way that does not obstruct the airflow, it just shapes the airflow. It makes a fluid pass through the mouth, and so we call them liquids. These are sounds like L and R in English, right? L and R. Glides, we'll talk about today. Glides are sounds produced by gliding, by smoothly moving part of the mouth, either the lips or the tongue. When I use the letter W, so words that begin with W, like winter, w, w, to create that w sound, I must smoothly move the lips away from a closed shape to create the sound winter, winter. So glides depend on this gliding movement, this smooth movement. And then we arrive at vowels, and that's where we're going to start today. Vowels have the greatest amount of sonority because the airflow path through the mouth is widest for vowels, and each segment class, as we go down, has slightly less and less and less airflow passing through the mouth. So that's the path we're going to take. And so last week, I introduced these same examples. I just want to review them. And we saw the open vowels are vowels created with a very wide airflow path. And today we'll study in more detail the difference between open and close vowels. The A in sad, right, is a very open vowel. Right? So airflow in speech is free, so it's unobstructed. It's not blocked. It freely passes through the mouth. And the path through the mouth is wide because the tongue is lowered or in a kind of rest position. Importantly, the tongue is not raised. Right? That's the key point. Right? The tongue is either in a rest position or lowered to create a wide airflow path. So sounds like ah and ah and aw and these are all open vowels. Now, it's an unfortunate, well, I mentioned last week that English spelling is not a good indication of pronunciation, and we have homographs, words spelled the same but pronounced differently. Well, this is one of those words. This could be the word close, meaning near, or the word close, right, to shut. Right? In this case, it's close, meaning near. We do not close the mouth, but rather we raise the tongue close to the top of the mouth. We raise the tongue near the top of the mouth. So close vowels are produced, again, with free airflow through the mouth, but the airflow path is made narrow by raising the tongue near the top of the mouth. And close vowels would be like the oo in food, right? Ooh, ooh. Or the e in see. If you say the word see, you can feel your tongue is close to the top of your mouth. See, right? Ni, me, right? Compared to ah or ah. And we'll be looking at these in great detail in a moment, right? So these are open vowels. Close vowels actually have less sonority than open vowels. Close vowels have the same degree of sonority as glides. So it gets a little confusing to use the word vowel. But generally, the term vowel for sonority really means open vowels. Glides and close vowels have less sonority than open vowels. And there's really little or no difference in sonority between the close vowels e and oo and the glides y and w. Y, the y at the beginning of yesterday, y, y. The tongue position is very similar to the position for e. E, y, e, y. So the degree of sonority, we refer to the class as glides, but in fact, the class of glides includes glides and close vowels. The class of vowels really means open vowels. And we'll see in a few minutes a slightly different way to describe that difference. Okay. So that's the greatest degree of sonority. That's the next degree of sonority, glides. And glides include the w, like in winter, the y in yes. And we'll be learning in this course that we use the letter J in IPA, in the International Phonetic Alphabet, for the sound y. And the reason is the letter Y has a different meaning. The letter Y in IPA describes a vowel sound that we don't have in English or in Japanese. But to avoid confusion, we use the letter J. I say avoid confusion. It could create confusion, but we'll be learning those in detail. So for the glides, there is the free airflow through the mouth, the narrow airflow path, the same as the closed vowels, because of the raised tongue. And then, in addition, there's this important movement. Right? The smooth movement is what distinguishes a glide from a vowel. Right? And the movement can either be from a narrow path. So when I say winter or white, white, I'm starting in a narrower position, white, white, or I can go, or it can appear after a vowel. Right? So when I say now, right, ow, I can move to a narrower airflow path. So a glide can appear before a vowel or after a vowel. Okay, so far. And important, please remember that the glides and the close vowels belong to the same segment class. It's often easily confused because it's a little confusing, right? So slightly less, so if I remove this one, slightly less are the liquids. These are the sounds produced with fluid or fluent airflow through the mouth, either around the sides of the tongue or along the middle of the tongue. So airflow passes fluidly. That also means kind of smoothly. But I'm not talking about movement of the mouth or tongue. I'm talking about the path of air, which is smooth and fluid. So there's the L of library, L. And we'll study this more, but the tip of the tongue touches behind the teeth, L. And the air flows around the sides of the tongue. Whereas in R, the sides of the tongue are up, and the air flows along the middle of the tongue. Nasals are produced by stopping the airflow through the mouth and allowing the airflow to pass through the nose. When I make the sound as in Matthews, the two lips close completely. No air or voice passes through the mouth, but at the back of the mouth, we'll look at it later. The back of the mouth, it kind of lowers, allowing the voice to travel through the nose. That's nasals. And nasals have a little less sonority. Right? They have, because there's no airflow through the mouth at all, they don't produce as much sound as liquids do. And that brings us to the last class, which are called obstruents. And this is a term from phonetics only. Right? There's no other use of this word in English. It's a kind of technical word. And it refers to obstructing the airflow at some place in the mouth. Maybe at the lips, at the teeth, at the back, someplace. And then the obstruction can either be partial, in which case the air continues to flow, but it passes through a very narrow opening. When I make the sound S, like the letter S, right? S, I am obstructing the airflow, but only partially, because the air can continue to pass by the teeth for the sound S, or the letter F, right? The air is partially blocked, whereas completely blocked sounds are made by stopping the airflow, completely obstructing the airflow for just a moment. So if I were to put a k between a and a, put a k, right? Aka, aka. In order to say aka, the back of my tongue must raise and completely stop the airflow in order to create the sound k. So some sounds completely stop the airflow. So it's partially and completely. Now together, whether they're stops, like the complete stop, or fricatives, like the partial obstruction, together they form the fifth class, the class of obstruents. Now that really is a review of some of the content that I introduced last week. Today we want to look in particular at something. It's funny, what was that other slide? I don't know. Well, we'll do a little practice quiz. I've just identified 5 classes. Okay? So there are the open vowels, the close vowels and glides go together, liquids, nasals, and obstruents. Now you can look at notes or you can think about it, but what I'd like you to do is try to identify the segment class that each of these segments belongs to. So I'll read them aloud, and you just make a note. Right? Is this an open vowel, a close vowel, a glide, a liquid, a nasal, or an obstruent? Right? So you don't need to distinguish between stops and fricatives. If it's a stop or a fricative, just mark it as obstruent. If you prefer, you can use V for vowel, G for glide, L for liquid, N for nasal, and O for obstruent. Let me just read each one aloud. So number 1 is ah. Number 2 is Number 3 is k. Number 4 is y. Number 5 is z. Number 6 is a. Number 7 is r. Number 8 is I. Number 9 is n. And number 10 is j. So by the end of this course, you should be able to identify the segment class that each segment belongs to. And so the first one, ah, right, is an open vowel. The tongue is low and it's a vowel sound. Whereas number 2, to create a the sound is passing through my nose, so it's a nasal. Number 3, I'm stopping the airflow, so it's an obstruent. I completely obstruct the airflow at the back of the mouth. Number 4, y. This is the y of yes we saw earlier, the glide, y. Number 5, is created by partially obstructing the airflow at the teeth. So it's an obstruent. Number 6, a, is the example I used before of a, is a low vowel, an open vowel. A. Number 7, r. Now, you'll notice that the r is turned upside down. Right? And we'll come back to this later, but that's the IPA symbol for the r in English, the r sound. There are many languages in the world that have r-like sounds, but it's much more common for languages to have a pronunciation like r. Spanish, Italian, and many other languages have r, and the regular r in IPA means r. So the upside down r means r. So from the beginning, we'll use this symbol, and it means the r you hear me say in red, right, wrong. If it were turned right side up, a regular R, that would be red, right, wrong. Most varieties of English don't have the R. Some do, though. If you listen carefully, the Queen of England sometimes will produce the R pronunciation in her received pronunciation. So R, the R sound of English, is a liquid, right? Because the air flows fluidly along the middle of the tongue. Number 8, I. I is a vowel sound, but it's a close vowel because the tongue is raised towards the top of the mouth to get I. Number 9, N, is the letter N with a little tail. This is the sound at the end of the word sing or thing, song. Right? N. In English spelling, it's written NG, but it's just one sound. So it shouldn't be a digraph. In IPA, it has one symbol. And because it's created by stopping the airflow through the mouth and allowing the voice to travel through the nose, it's a nasal. Right? N, n, n. And finally, the j is produced by stopping the airflow, obstructing the airflow to create j. So it's an obstruent. Now, if you didn't recognize all of them yet, that's fine. It's just the first day. Right? But you get an idea of what you should be prepared to learn. Right? You should be able to identify the segment class that each segment belongs to. Now, I've said before that the airflow path is this path. It's the root, right? The path that the voice takes as it passes through the mouth or through the nose. So at the back here, you have a kind of soft muscle. This part is bone, and if you go far enough back, the bone stops. Don't try this. It can kind of trigger a reaction. But it's soft back here, and there's muscle there that lowers and raises. So you can close your mouth and breathe, right? How are you doing that? Well, the velum lowers, allowing the breath to pass through the nose. When you go swimming, when you hold your breath underwater, you raise the velum to prevent water from entering through the nose, and so it stops the pressure of the air pushes out that way. So this moves, right? And it's used for different speech sounds. It's lowered for nasals, and it's raised for what we call oral segments produced in the mouth. Now for English, nasals are only stops, which means we stop the airflow through the mouth. So if the velum lowers, someplace we're going to be stopping the airflow in the mouth, either at the lips, or behind the teeth, or at the back, ng. But some languages lower the velum to create vowel sounds as well. So if you study French, for example, French has a contrast, a difference between the vowel o and the vowel on. So if you say beau, beau means beautiful or nice, right? Beau, and bon means good. Right? So whether the velum is lowered for bon or raised for beau, it changes the sound because in bon, the voice is traveling both through the nose and the mouth. But English doesn't have these nasal vowels. So for English, nasals are always a kind of stop because you stop the airflow through the mouth. They're not a true stop because they are not obstruents, right? Because the airflow itself is not obstructed, it's redirected through the nose. we'll come back. So for vowels, we want to identify the different vowel sounds. And that's what we'll do next. So take a language like Japanese. How many different vowel sounds in Japanese? 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 5, right? Usually people would say 5, right? Right? Well, in English, how many different vowel sounds? Well, more than 5. And so we're going to learn those today. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the space in the mouth and identify the position of the tongue during pronunciation. If the tongue is raised or lowered, whether the tongue is towards the front or towards the back. So I've kind of drawn this little chart that roughly represents the space in the mouth. And it's longer on the top than on the bottom because the top of your mouth is longer than the bottom. So that's why I have this shape. And what we're going to do is we're going to refer to any vowels pronounced with the tongue raised. We'll call those high vowels. So up till now, I used the word close or open. And for sonority, we distinguish close from open. But we want to be a little more specific in our description of vowels here. So I'm going to refer to the close vowels in terms of the tongue position. The tongue position is high, which creates a close vowel. So we'll just say high vowel. Vowels are produced when the tongue is high in the mouth. Now, in some cases, the tongue lowers, and we're going to lower the mouth to call for low vowels. And then sometimes the tongue is neither raised nor lowered, and so we'll just refer to those as mid vowels. They're in the middle of the mouth. And if the tongue is pushed towards the front of the mouth, we'll refer to them simply as front vowels. And if it's pulled back, we'll refer to them as back vowels. And then if it's neither pushed forward nor pulled back, then we'll refer to them as central vowels. So we're identifying a kind of zone or region or area in the mouth. A high front area, a low back area, a high back area, a front mid or a mid front area. And we're going to refer to the different vowels by where the tongue moves to create those sounds. And if you just make different sounds in your mouth, ah, ee, oo, eh, o, you can feel that changing the position of the tongue changes the shape of the space in the mouth. And that's the key point. The shape in the space of the mouth causes the sound of the voice to be different. If I were to take a tiny microphone and pass it down to the throat, down here, there's just your voice, right? It's the same vibration for ah or for e or for o. The sound of ah or e or o is due to the shape of the space the voice travels through. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of place in this chart the different vowel sounds. So can I just, give me a vowel, any vowel. Name a vowel. Give me an example of a vowel sound. Any vowel.
Oh.
Ah, excellent example. Ah. How do I create ah? Where in the mouth is the tongue position for ah? Somehow I knew you would guess this vowel, and it's here. Ah. Ah is low and kind of in the middle. The tongue is just ah, ah, okay? Ah. How about another vowel? Give me another vowel. I have ah.
E.
E. Excellent choice. How did I know? E. What's the difference between ah and e? Ah, e. I'm wearing a mask, but normally I would, if you put your finger, you can see the jaw change position from ah to e. You can see my mask goes ah, e, right? Because the e sound is created by raising the tongue high in the mouth. Not only high, but also towards the front, right? E, ah, e. So I have ah, I have e, what else? Give me another example. Ah, e, excellent choice, oo, right? What's the pronunciation of oo? Is the tongue high or low? Well, we know this is low, so ah, oo. Ah, oo. Well, ah is lower than oo. How about oo, e, oo? In fact, e is towards the front, oo is towards the back. Oo, e, oo. So we're going to call this a high front vowel, a low central vowel, a high back vowel. I have ah, I have e, I have oo. Fine choice, How is produced? Ah. Ah. Well, ah is lower than Right? Ah, e, e. In fact, oops, is ah, e. It's a front vowel, but the tongue is not as high for as it is for e. So you know where I'm going with this. I have I have ah, e, u, and the fifth vowel in Japanese would be o. And you can feel that the tongue position is low ah, o, o, ah. Now, in fact, so Japanese, Spanish, there are many languages around the world with these 5 vowels. In fact, Spanish has the same 5 vowels as Japanese. Other languages have 5 vowels, and there's some small differences, but it's a very, very common for languages to have 5 vowels. There are some languages with only 3 vowels. And there's a couple languages with just 2 vowels. The most common is actually 7. 5 and 7 are the most common numbers of vowels. And English has more than 7. But we're going to find the vowels of English by slightly changing the position of the tongue. And the first important thing to remember is, regardless of what language you're speaking, you use the same mouth, the same tongue, the same lips. Right? So the same vowel space in the mouth for Japanese, we use the same vowel space for Japanese, for Russian, Italian, English, Swahili. All human languages include vowel sounds produced in this same way of combining tongue height and tongue position. But there's an additional difference that is not important in Japanese pronunciation that is important in English pronunciation. And that difference is called tenseness. Whether the muscles of the tongue and the throat are tense or relaxed. And we'll see that that difference distinguishes some of the vowels. Now, I should point out that I began with Japanese vowels, and there's actually a difference between English oo, which is pronounced with rounded lip shape, right? Oo, and Japanese, Japanese u is actually slightly different. And as a result, the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, uses different symbols. So when you say a, I, u, e, o, that u sound is actually written as an upside down M in the IPA to make clear that the actual pronunciation is a little bit different. They're both high back vowels, but the difference is in the lip shape. For Japanese, well, to be honest, some speakers have a slightly rounded pronunciation, and some speakers don't. The roundedness is not important. That's the key. English pronunciation must include rounded lip shape to make an oo sound. I can't go through oo. So you have a and oo. The lips are rounded. Okay? But since I'm building the inventory of vowels in English, I'm not going to use this symbol. Okay? So I want to start with these 5 vowels, and then I want to place within them the vowels of English. So we have E and we have E. So we'll do a little, I've never done this in a classroom full of masks, but we'll try. So could you please say out loud, and perfect. Okay. And now I'd like you to pronounce the sound and hold the sound. E and A. Excellent. Now, what I want to do is I want to find the other vowel pronunciations that lie between the high front vowel E and the mid front vowel A. And the way I'm going to do that is to ask you to pronounce this vowel and then slowly change into this vowel. And then we'll do it again, but when we do it again, I'll stop you as you pass through a different English vowel. So first we'll try the slow, gradual change by starting here. Perfect, I heard it, okay? One more time. Okay, now the other direction. Perfect, okay? Now this time, as you're changing the pronunciation, when my finger stops moving, stop changing the pronunciation, but continue to say that sound. Ready? That's, oh, okay. Ha! Ha! That's this sound. Now, English pronunciation lengthens the tense vowels. Right, so I've added this word tense and lax. Lax is just short for relaxed, right? Not tense. So the E pronunciation is a little further forward and a little higher because the muscles are tense. But English pronunciation also lengthens tense vowels. Tense vowels like E are never pronounced E, but rather E, E, like I see. Never I see, I see, I see. It's lengthened. The reason it's lengthened is because it's tense. And that's a property of English. It's not a property of all speech. Many languages have a tense vowel that doesn't get lengthened. Many speakers of Japanese, in fact, say shi with a high front tense vowel, but there's no contrast. There's no difference between E and I in Japanese. But in English, if you beat someone, you have a race and you beat them, then that means you're the winner. You beat them. But if you bit them, well, that means you opened your mouth and bit them. So it's an important difference between whether you say beat or bit. So we have E and I. A is also tense. So because it's tense, it gets lengthened. So sometimes a dictionary will use these 2 dots to mean lengthened. But be careful. In fact, the mid-vowels are not only lengthened. The high vowels are lengthened, E. The mid-vowels are lengthened, and the tongue, because of tenseness, slightly moves up. So what we actually pronounce, I revealed my, hold on. I was going to say that afterwards. I forgot my animation. Okay. Well, the drama is gone, but now we can, so we have E. Right, so just as I have E, I can keep going. E, and we have this sound, which is a little bit less forward because it's lax. Right? It's a relaxed sound. This is the difference between A and E. It's actually a little bit lower as well, so I've placed it here. E. So this would be E, like in, I don't know why I thought of that word, met. So this is A, let's use a pair, like, safe, like that, late, let. Late, right? If I'm late for class, let. Right? Please let me be late. A, E. A, E. Lax vowels are always short. Tense vowels are lengthened. Now, English actually has 5 front vowels. We have E. Well, let's. I don't need to say it. You can say it. Ready? E. No. Just each one. You don't need to hold them. As I point to the symbol, pronounce the sound that I point to. Not A. Because English is lengthened, it becomes A. E. 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 Careful. E. Higher. E. 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 A. E. This is not getting lax enough. I'm hearing E. It's E. There it is. Lower. Okay. E. Well, you can't see my mouth. Tongue is low and front. E. I'm trying to further forward than ah. Right? This was ah. We began with ah, o. Right? This was ah. But this is ah. So I have, there's my A. Tense vowels are not only lengthened if they're mid-vowels, the tongue also slightly rises. And you can probably hear it. Right? I don't say A, but rather A. The tongue slightly rises because of the tenseness of the muscles. So when I say A, there's some possible confusion because I'm going to be a little bit mixed. I will refer to this as a mid-front tense vowel, but I will also refer to just the symbol, the letter E, as a mid-front tense vowel. It just means this is the English pronunciation of the mid-front tense vowel. Because it's a property of English pronunciation that we lengthen tense vowels. And for the mid-vowels, they're not only lengthened, but they rise slightly. So here I have E, I, A, A. Oh, sorry. Some dictionaries will write A like this with the letter J, because it is a kind of glide pronunciation. However, the IPA representation, the IPA symbol for English A is this one. So I just want to make clear, when you see this in a dictionary, the meaning is exactly the same as this. So it depends on the publisher of the dictionary, but you will see both of them. I just want it to be clear, although the letters are different, the pronunciations are not. They're just two ways of writing the same thing. But in this course, I'm going to stay with the IPA, so I'm not going to use that. I'll use this. A. E. I. A. E. A. E, I, A, A. The tongue is low and pushed towards the front. So it's similar to Japanese a in that the tongue is low. But it's different in that you have to push the tongue forward to create that a sound. It's the difference between the a of shoes and the a of Matthews. The a is different. So we have 5 vowels just among the front vowels. Languages like Spanish and Japanese and others have 5 vowels in total. English has 5 front vowels. The contrast between tense and lax only occurs among the high and mid vowels. There is no contrast in tenseness among the low vowels. And part of the reason is the space is narrower. There's not enough room to have a distinct vowel category. So we have a low front vowel, but we have 2 mid front vowels. A high front mid, a mid front tense vowel, and a mid front lax vowel. Now, to be honest, I don't care which order you use for describing them. If you want to refer to this as a lax mid front vowel or a front lax mid vowel, it's all the same. Textbooks will always say a mid front lax vowel. We say the height first, and then the position, and then whether it's tense or lax. But to be honest, there's no reason for the order other than we all do it the same way. Now, in addition to 5 front vowels, we also have 5 back vowels. Now, oo is also a tense vowel. And because it's a tense vowel, it's pronounced long, right? Oo, oo. So the 2 dots are used to represent this longer pronunciation. So when I count and say 1, 2, I never say 2, but rather 2, 2. And the O is also tense, so it gets lengthened as well. This will take a moment. Hold on. So the same exercise we did where we found the lax vowel it, we can do with the back vowels as well. Right? So we have oo is a tense vowel, therefore it gets lengthened. Right? And so as I move from oo to o, I pass through another vowel. That's the point. So could you please pronounce oo? O. O. Ooh. O. Excellent. Now, without my voice, I'll just point. And O. Okay. Now, again, as I move from one vowel to the other, slowly change your pronunciation from one sound to the next. Ready? Begin. Perfect. Now the reverse. Perfect. This time as I change, when my finger stops moving, stop changing the position of your tongue, but continue to pronounce the vowel. The voices got very quiet suddenly. Try again. No, you stop moving. Again. All right, this sound. Ooh, ooh, The tongue is a little bit lower, but still high. A little bit less back, but still back. But the muscles in the tongue and throat are not tense. They're relaxed. Also, the lips are not tightly closed. So I have ooh and ooh, ooh, Because it's tense and lengthened, it's longer than is a lax vowel, so it's short. Okay? So I have ooh, I forgot what comes next. I think this is lengthened. Is this lengthened? No. O and ah. This should be lengthened. Yeah, okay, great. So because it's tense, it's lengthened, but English mid-vowels slightly rise. So we don't just pronounce O, but rather O. So the symbol in IPA is O, O. So if you hear a child saying no, no, there's movement. It's not no, but no, no. And again, some dictionaries will write this O-W, O, but the IPA symbol is this one. Okay? So there is a kind of smooth movement from one sound to the next. So that's why some dictionary publishers believe you should use the glide letter. But since the IPA has selected this one, that's the one we use in this course. O, O. And then ah is rounded, short, not tense, right? Ooh, o, ah. Like in the word soft, soft, ah, soft. Where this would be sofa, sofa, sofa and soft, a soft sofa. Whereas this would be oo as in boot. Right? I'm wearing shoes, or shoe and boot. This would be as in book, book. Boot, book. Sofa, soft. Right? And then there is also a low back vowel. Right? We have oo, o, ah, ah. And so we use a slightly different letter A. Here the A for the low central vowel has this curl on the top, like a printed A, like like you see in a book. Right? This kind of A is the one we pronounce in English, which is a low back vowel. So in fact, English doesn't have this pronunciation as a vowel. When I say as a vowel, because I'm going to add it back in just a minute, but we have ah. So if you really measure pronunciation carefully, Japanese ah, English ah, they're very close. And if you use this sound in Japanese or this sound in English, people don't really notice the difference. Although they may say, oh, he has a little bit of an accent. I don't know what's different. Well, we can measure the difference. And the tongue position is a little further back and a little lower in English. Like the word father. That's the clap. Father. Ah, father. It's not father, father. Father. And so we don't have this low central vowel in English alone. We do use it as part of a diphthong, which I'll come to in just a moment. But first, let me finish the set of vowels, because this middle space is also used in English pronunciation. So we don't have this by itself, but we do have the sound And I know this is always a difficult contrast. Japanese ah. Perfect. Oh, your Japanese is excellent, right? Ah. But now the tongue gets raised a little bit to this mid area to create up. one, fun. This is the sound. Sun, love. Right? It's not You must raise the tongue to this mid-level to create And in fact, it's very close to is rounded, is not rounded. That's the key difference between those pronunciations, soft and, what's the word with us? Let's not use L. No. Doc. You have your boat. You're on your boat, and you're coming in. It's time to tie up your boat at the dock. D-O-C-K, dock. Right? Versus duck, duck, dock. They're very close, but they are different. And English listeners hear this difference very clearly. We hear duck and dock as completely different sounds because they are different for us. So it's an important contrast to acquire. And the key to remember is that the does not have any lip rounding, right? Whereas the does. And the tongue height is higher than It's challenging because when words get borrowed into Japanese from English, if the English pronunciation has the Japanese pronunciation becomes So we have B-U-S, bus, bus. Bus becomes bus. Bus has an but in English it's bus. And there's a difference. Now, this pronunciation occurs when it's in the stressed part of the word. When it's unstressed, it becomes weaker. This letter E turned upside down is the most frequently produced vowel in spoken English. And the reason is the effect of stress on pronunciation. When vowels are in unstressed syllables, they all change to schwa. And we'll come back to this in about 20 minutes. But the result is this vowel has a name. It's called schwa. It's actually, the name comes from German, which is why it doesn't really sound like a very English name. Schwa. But schwa refers to this mid-central, unstressed vowel. And the difference between these is not tense and lax. The difference is stressed and unstressed. So the difference between tense and lax appears for front vowels and for back vowels, but not for central vowels. Central vowels are distinguished by stress or unstressed. And in some varieties of English, including mine, the dialect I speak, we also have a high central vowel pronunciation. So if I go from to the tongue is raising, right? If I raise even higher without pushing towards the front or pulling to the back, what I get is the sound It sounds a little bit like R, but it's not exactly R. It's an R, we call it an R-colored vowel. It's and the symbol we use in an unstressed syllable looks like schwa with this little tail. And the tail means this R-like pronunciation. It's at the end of the word sister, mother, father, at that sound. I say some dialects. If you listen carefully to British English, you'll hear where I say sister, they would say sister, sister. There's no sound. For them, it's a little bit lower, and there's no R coloring. Sister, 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 sister. In the unstressed position, it's like schwa. If it's in the stressed position, we use what looks like this S sound turned backwards, like almost like the number 3, with the tail. So this is the sound that you have between the B and the D of the word bird. In English writing, it has two letters. It's a digraph, I-R. But there's just one segment. It's B-R-D. This is the er. And we'll practice this sound, maybe not today, but next week for sure. Because this is a challenging sound. Right? There's no pronunciation in spoken Japanese that resembles bird. But notice that it's high. It's when a word, actually like word, word, a word like bird is borrowed into Japanese, you keep the central tongue position. But Japanese has only one central vowel. And therefore, there's a big difference between bird and bado. Bado has, or wado, it's a low central vowel pronunciation. So for English listeners, if you say bado, they will not understand what you're trying to say. Because there's such a big difference between a high and a low tongue position. But the reason it's naturally produced bado in Japanese is because you're maintaining or keeping the central tongue position. But there's only one choice. The 5 vowels in Japanese are either back vowels, front vowels, or just this one low central vowel. So languages do the best they can with the closest available pronunciation. So, I said at the beginning, how many vowels in spoken Japanese? Well, there are 5 here. There are 5 here. That's 10. And then there are 4 here. So that's 14. There are at least 14 different vowels. I say at least because there are some differences between varieties of English spoken in different parts of the world. So I've described for you the kind of standard set of vowels. If you were to go to Scotland, for example, they have slightly different vowels, and you would adjust them accordingly. But these are the vowels we're going to refer to in the course. Now, I mentioned briefly this word diphthong. I said that we do have diphthongs that include this articulation, this pronunciation. So in addition to the 14 pure vowels, we also have 3 diphthongs. The strange word, diphthong. It comes from Greek, and the di at the beginning means 2. Diphthong. The thong refers to the vowel sound, and so 2 vowel sounds pronounced together we refer to as a diphthong. So instead of having just a by itself, I produce I. But importantly, this is not a-i. It's not 2 vowels. It's 1 vowel that is produced with movement. There must be movement of the tongue throughout the pronunciation. It's not I, it's I. The tongue begins in a low central position and ends in a high front position. So, unfortunately, there's no simple name. We would call this a low central to high front diphthong. Quite a long name. Low central to high front diphthong. Because we're describing the movement involved in pronunciation. I. So like I, the word I. High. That's a diphthong. Now we have 3 of them. 2 of them involve the low central starting point. So we have I. We also have ow. Ow. The ow pronunciation of now, how, cow. That sound is written with the low central vowel, followed by the high back vowel, ow. Now, importantly, for a diphthong, the position or the height of the tongue must completely change. So notice this goes from low to high. From low to high. We saw earlier the mid-tense vowels, A and O, also involve a slight raising of the tongue, but we don't actually refer to those as diphthongs. Some textbooks will call them fake diphthongs, or not true diphthongs. A true diphthong completely changes the position or the height of the tongue. So low to high, or back to front. So in addition to I and ow, we also have oi. Oi starts at the back in the mid, and then also goes to the front. But since it completely changes from back to front, it's also a true diphthong, oi. So boy, noise. So these are diphthongs. I think I wrote it down here, right? So there's a the di means two, and then because it's from Greek, there's a thongs. Now, technically, the pure vowels are called monophthongs. Diphthongs means two, monophthongs means one. So we can organize the pronunciation chart in a table that looks like this, where the monophthongs are up here and the diphthongs are down there. And here I've just organized the table in a kind of straight lines, rather than identifying the particular location, but just referring to this as a high front tense vowel, a mid front lax vowel, a low back vowel. So you will need to be able to identify the vowel sound from the description. So if I say to you a mid back lax vowel, you should be able to identify which IPA symbol is a mid back lax vowel. Mid back lax vowel would be the ah. And we'll practice these each week for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So a low front vowel, this one. Or the reverse, I might say, what is the name for this vowel? And this vowel should be a high front lax vowel. What is the name of this vowel in English? A, the mid front tense vowel. That's the idea. So you should be able to go back and forth between describing how the sound is made and the IPA symbol for that vowel. And remember that the central vowels are not distinguished by tense and lax, but rather this is a high central stressed vowel. Or if you prefer, a stressed high central vowel. Either is fine. An unstressed high central vowel, or a high central unstressed vowel. And likewise, a stressed mid-central vowel, and an unstressed mid-central vowel. And then we have no monophthong ah, but we do use the ah in I and ow. And then the third diphthong is oi. Oh, wow, on the front page. I knew I'd be slow. We'll probably be using the same handout next week. Okay, so but those are all the vowels of spoken English. Okay? And we'll practice them a bit next week. Right. So in terms of pronunciation, as I introduced last week, the word pronounce is a verb. It's an action. It refers to something I do. Not something I know, but something I do. And it means to create or articulate speech sounds. And the reason for connecting phonetics to pronunciation is by thinking about what the important differences are, you might be able to adjust your own pronunciation. So we'll be doing some pronunciation exercises in class. Sorry, if you're looking on the handout, this slide is not on the handout. I just wanted to highlight that to connect to something I said last week and to remind you that pronunciation is different from knowledge. You can know the sounds of the words. That's different from the skill of producing the sounds, of pronouncing the sounds in a certain way. So we're going to begin connecting phonetics to pronunciation. We've done it a little bit today by distinguishing E, I, A, E, A. But I want to connect that to actually words and phrases and sentences. So here is just to review what we've been studying so far. That sonority is a key term. So please learn the meaning of the word sonority because it distinguishes the classes of segments we're studying. Sonority is the relative amount of sound in segments. And the source of sonority comes from the voice. So a segment that has no voice is not sonorant. Right? So sound like, there's no voice in the sound F. Right? It's not sonorant. In addition to voice, there's also the degree or amount of airflow. The wider the airflow path, the greater the amount of sonority that's created during pronunciation. So this just means that voiced segments have more sound than unvoiced segments. And we'll be learning in more detail about this voiced, unvoiced soon. And then for airflow, the open airflow segments have greater sonority than the reduced airflow. And the reduced airflow have greater sonority than the closed airflow. So these two properties combine together to distinguish the classes of segments in terms of their sonority. And this just reviews what we've studied. So we've seen that the vowels can be distinguished by low and mid vowels, which belong to the group of open vowels. High vowels, like I, U, are the same degree of sonority as the glides, y, w. And then we'll be studying these in the future weeks. Right? Rhotics and laterals are the R and L sounds of liquids. Nasals, we use the same word for nasals. And then different types of obstruents, those that partially or completely stop the airflow. And so the degrees of sonority line up with these degree of airflow in pronunciation. And then later we'll ultimately learn each of the segments that belongs to each of these segment types. Basically, these are segments, individual speech sounds. These are segment types, and these are segment classes. And then this word consonant we'll come back to later. I forget what's next. All right. Okay, all right, I want to summarize, I want to group together the different classes. So together these fricatives, affricates, and stops, which we'll learn in more detail, form the group of obstruents. Obstruents are not sonorant. So the first way of dividing the entire inventory of segments is to divide them into the obstruents, which includes the stops, fricatives, and affricates, and the sonorants. That's the big division. Basically, obstruents have no sonority. Sonorants have some sonority and different degrees of sonority. So then we're going to divide the group of sonorants into those that are made in the mouth versus those made in the nose. So the nasals do not belong to the group of approximants. Laterals, rhotics, glides, high vowels. This word approximant has two meanings, and you're probably familiar with one of them, which is different from the one we use here. Approximate looks like approximate. Notice the N. It's approximate. That's different from approximate, M-A-T-E, or to approximate. If you know the number approximately, there are approximately 35 students in the room. Well, it could be 33, it could be 37. It kind of means about. This word is different from that. Approximately, okay, the P-R-O-X-I, right? If you know the word proximity means near. So approximates are created by bringing parts of the mouth near each other. Not touching, but near. So to create high vowels, glides, and rhotics, we bring the tongue near the roof of the mouth without touching, although we include the laterals. Laterals, actually just the tip of the tongue does touch. But these segment types, not the nasals and not the open vowels, these are called approximants because they share this property of bringing the tongue near the top of the mouth to create the speech sounds. And then the last group are the vowels. Did I make a, yeah. Now we use the word vowels broadly to include not only the open vowels, but the closed vowels. So when I'm describing different segments, these are segment types, right? Not segment classes, but segment types. We will use terms like approximant and vowels and obstruents and sonorants to group them together. All right. So again, to summarize what we've been studying by these groups of segments, sonority is based on degree of airflow, and we can separate the inventory into obstruents and sonorants. None of the sonorants are obstruents, and none of the obstruents are sonorants. But the sonorants can be divided into those that are pronounced with airflow through the nose, the nasal sonorants, or the sonorant approximants. Nasal sonorants stop the airflow through the mouth. Sonorant approximants are produced by bringing the tongue near the top of the mouth. But the sonorant approximants can be further divided into those that have airflow around the sides of the tongue. So lateral means sides. Lateral approximant is pronounced by raising the tip of the tongue, forcing the voice around the sides of the tongue. And the other type are the median approximants. Median means middle. The air flows along the middle, or the median of the tongue. Median approximants. And then the median approximants can be further divided into what's called a rhotic median approximant. And we'll study this later. I'm just introducing these terms today. And next week and the following week, we'll look in more detail at these sonorant approximants. They can be rhotic, which is the R-like sound. And the word rhotic refers to the tongue shape, creating that sound. And then vocalic median approximant. Vocalic means vowel-like. So it includes glides and vowels. Right? The high vowels and the glides belong to this group of vocalic median approximants. So all of this is to group together segments that share some property of pronunciation. Okay, I'll just finish then by, the glides and the vowels. Right? So the vocalic median approximants include the glides and the vowels. So these two belong to this one. Both of these belong to this. Both of these belong to that. Both of these belong to this and that. Okay, let me just finish by reviewing the fact that we've seen airflow in vowels passes freely through the mouth, but it is shaped by the tongue. The height of the tongue, whether the tongue is in a high position, a mid position, or a low position. And then I use the word position to distinguish front from central to back. Okay? So tongue height, tongue position, and there's also the shape of the lips, but we'll learn that the shapes of the lips are predictable, which means English rounded vowels are always back vowels, and English front vowels are always unrounded. We don't have a contrast between rounded and unrounded, but we do shape the lips that are high back and mid back vowels have rounded lip shape, and that contributes to the sound of those vowels. And then the other one we introduced today was tense or lax, right? Where the tenseness of the muscles influences the sound created during pronunciation. And when we saw the kind of image of, this is just a photocopy from a textbook, where you can see that the tongue position here is towards the front, and the different tongue height, right? So if I have the vowel a is produced with a low tongue position, and if I were to raise the tongue up a little bit to and a and I and e, right? The high vowel would be produced with the tongue in the high position. Now all of these, e, I, a, these are all front vowels because the tongue is pushed towards the front, which makes this part of the mouth wide, right? Has a wider space, and that creates the sound in that space. Whereas if we were to create back vowels, then the tongue gets pulled back, and this space is much narrower, which changes the kind of sound that is created. So this tongue position would be for the vowel ah, where the tongue is mid and pulled towards the back. And then if I raise it for o and oo, still you can see it's pulled back a bit. Whereas the central vowels, I think I have a central vowel image. Oh yeah, this is just to remind you of the kind of shape that I referred to before. In the central vowels, right, the tongue is neither pulled back nor pushed forward. So here you have the position for ah, and then kind of in the middle would be and then all the way up for So if the tongue raises, I think I did a little bit of it. Yeah, so here's the airflow passing through the mouth. It's very wide, creating a lot of sonority, ah. And when you raise the tongue, it makes that space narrower. And then when you raise the tongue even higher, it's even narrower. Right? So And it's that narrowness of the airflow path that makes the vowel sounds different from each other. Right. I think that's probably a good place for me to, let me see, do I have? Oh, yeah, this is the same thing. I'll go to distinctive things. Okay, so we have obstruents, vowels, glides, liquids, nasals, right? So vowels have the greatest degree of sonority, like ah. Then we saw that glides and high vowels, e and w, have the next degree of sonority. Liquids are sounds like l and r, have less sonority than the glides, but more sonority than the nasals. Nasals have less. And then obstruents basically have none, right? They're s. An obstruent. Right, the next topic is distinctive features, which I can't finish in 8 minutes, so I'll stop there. Okay. So I will stop there. Is there anything to jump to? Do I have time for? Yeah. Okay. So I I just have 5 minutes left, so what I'd like to do is have you take out a phone or a tablet or a laptop or something, and I'll just kind of review some key questions. Then if you can enter your browser, pollev.com/chuo, pollev.com/chuo. We'll just review a few questions. The first one is, what is phonetics? I promised you would get this question, and here it is. Is it the study of sound, the study of the human voice, the study of languages, the study of speech sounds, the study of telephones? Phonetics, the study of telephones. No. No? Too early. The correct answer is the study of speech sounds. Right? Acoustics was the study of sound. Right? Good. Okay. Next one. What is the term for an independent speech sound? Is it alphabet, inventory, letter, segment, sonority? Which of those is the term for an independent speech sound? The correct answer is segment. An individual speech sound is a segment. Segmental phonetics is the study of individual speech sounds. What do the letters IPA stand for? Is that the Independent Pronunciation Association? The International Pronunciation Alphabet? The International Phonetic Alphabet? The Independent Phonetic Alphabet? The Important Person Attitude? The correct answer is the International Phonetic Alphabet, not pronunciation. International Phonetic Alphabet. What is the term for two words with the same pronunciation? Two words with the same pronunciation. Is that a digraph, a diphone, a homophone, a homograph, a photograph? The correct answer is homophone. Right? Same sound, homophone. Two words with the same pronunciation. Digraph is just two letters used to represent a sound. So that would be like the letter SH, sh. Or PH in digraph is two letters, PH, for one sound. But a homophone is two words with the same pronunciation. Which of the following is not a segment class? Nasal, fluid, obstruent, vowel, glide? The correct answer was fluid. We do have liquid. Liquid is a segment class, but not fluid. Which segment class includes segments in which the airflow through the mouth is either completely or partially blocked? Is that obstruents, liquids, glides, closed vowels, open vowels? That would be obstruents, right? It obstructs the airflow through the mouth. And which of the following segments does not belong to the class of approximants? Approximants are produced by bringing the tongue near the top of the mouth. W, L, U, R, N. whoops, what's happened there? Dictionary. The correct answer is nasal, right? Because it's not near the top of the mouth, it's touching and stopping airflow through the mouth. All of these are approximants. W, L, U, and R. Okay. Which of the following Japanese pronunciations is most similar to English la? Is it da? No, oh, I shouldn't say that. Which Japanese pronunciation is most similar to English? Right, da. Easy, da. You guys have two more. Which segment class involves smooth movement in pronunciation? Is that obstruents, nasals, liquids, glides, vowels? Smooth movement. Now, liquids have smooth, fluid airflow, not movement of the lips or the tongue. Smooth movement refers to glides, movement of the lips or movement of the tongue. It's easy to confuse. The glides are pronounced with smooth movement with a part of the mouth. Liquids have fluid movement of the air. Last one. How do you spell the English translation of onseigaku? Is it phonetics? The correct answer, of course, is phonetics. Okay, I'll stop there. There will be a quiz from in about 10 minutes. From 11 o'clock on Manaba that you must complete before Saturday night. Please don't wait until midnight on Saturday, because if you have some kind of Wi-Fi trouble, you might not be able to connect. So sometime during the week, be sure to complete the quiz, and then next week's class will of course be here, Monday morning, 9 o'clock. That's all there is for today. Have a nice week, a nice weekend, and I will see you next Monday. Thank you.